You don't see positive portrayals of it in the media. It doesn't really happen. I mean, think about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Why is the show named after them? It's just 4 teenagers that look a little weird and like eating pizza and practicing karate. That's normal as The real story is about the single rat father pulling him and them boys out of the sewer, taking care of 4 little boys that he know ain't his. You think he didn't know? They don't look nothing like him. But he like, if not me, then who? I'm not the step rat, I'm the rat that stepped up.
Only when we stop stopping our lives can we begin to start starting them.
Sure, it's done in the name of comedy, but is debasing ourselves really that hilarious?
Doggy butt, doggy butt, doggy 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 butt, doggy butt, doggy butt, doggy 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 butt.
Hey, you either get it or you don't. And I don't. But I am so excited to be a part of it.
Last time I checked, audio was the second most important part of the audio-video experience.
Flashes of Quincy.
All right, hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to a Monday edition of TBTL, the show that just might be too beautiful to live.
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
My name is Luke Burbank. I am your host.
I feel cute today. Look at my outfit.
Coming to you from the Madrona Hill studio, perched high above the mighty Columbia, where it is an absolutely spectacular, beautiful Monday.
Oh, Ma, Pa, it's just beautiful.
Broke out the sunscreen over the weekend. That tells you that we have crossed some sort of weather Rubicon, and things are absolutely spectacular here. It's the exact right temperature to bring you episode 4,479 in a collector series.
Let the fun begin.
On Friday, we did not get to this story of the delayed Delta flight, where the passengers were feeling the way you feel when a flight is delayed and you're missing your connections and stuff is not going particularly well. And then something magical happens. They give a kid the public address phone, and the kid starts singing songs from Moana. And
hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
We'll delve into that. Also, speaking of children,
kids and fantasy,
I finally got eyes on the TBTL Junior Sluggers, a.k.a. the Gators of the Parkside Little League of East Portland, and it was a wonderful Saturday experience. We'll delve into that as well.
The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd. That's right, baseball's back.
And we're also going to talk to this guy, longest-running Cobra of the show, maybe best known for his depictions of the tall ship.
Soulful rocker from New Hampshire.
He is Andrew Walsh, and he's joining me right now. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Luke. Listen, I'm not telling you I know what a good headline is, but I'll tell you what a good headline isn't.
All right.
And it's TSA issues warning about ubiquitous feature at airports.
Oh, boy. Is Seattle Times strikes again?
I mean, every day with this shit. And I know that we're talking to the Junior Sluggers. We're going to be talking
fine.
about them.
I'd
bleep
rather
it.
besmirch.
I'll bleep it.
What do we call her? The old green lady?
The old emerald lady.
Emerald lady? That's a better name.
First of all, if you have the room to use the word.
Anybody watching, this is really bunk journalism.
If you have the room to use ubiquitous, you have the room just to write that headline the way it should be written, which is,
oh my God,
specifically say what is nefarious in airports that we should be avoiding. It's clickbait, my man. It's all clickbait.
Andrew,
sorry, I'm done.
Do you know that my first encounter with the word ubiquitous, which has lived in my head for, I'm 49, so carry the one, for probably, I'd say, 40 years of my life, is related to the Seattle Times. When I was a kid in the, I'd say, mid-1980s, there were Seattle Times television ads where somebody in the ad, they're supposed to be like person on the street, and they're talking about the Seattle Times.
Oh, okay.
And the person says, it's ubiquitous. And I remember being a kid and being like, what the heck is that word? And it was a Seattle Times television ad. This was, of course, back when newspapers had money for things like ads. And they didn't have to just like use terrible clickbaity headlines so as to try to get one more click so as to try to stay alive for another 5 seconds. So it's hilarious that they would overuse the word ubiquitous in a headline when that is where I learned that the word ubiquitous exists, was the Seattle Times, circa like 1983.
Now, you are a world traveler. Have you read this story? Do you know what the ubiquitous threat is in airports that they're warning us not to
No, but I can tell you that it's not a threat.
It is also...
That's what I know about this. What I know is that it's not a thing that anyone is trying to take the airplane down with, regardless of what the TSA is telling you, regardless of what sort of photographs that they enlarge and then laminate and then post at the guard station at the TSA checkpoint. I can promise you that nobody is able to take an airplane down with this thing that is being called a quote-unquote threat.
You know what it is? It's oversized murals of magicians. That is the thing in airports that they're warning against.
And it's like a long, kind of like a cylinder, like a long tube that somebody could climb in.
A little bit of insider Seattle airport
Hyper-specific Seattle Tacoma airport references on a Monday.
Harriet Baskus, that one was for you.
Pitch that to yahoo.com.
The threat is to not airplanes, but to people's computers. They're saying don't use those USB charging stations anymore because hackers have a way of installing malware into the USB things where you might charge your phone or whatever. They're saying
I'll allow that.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with the story.
That's a reasonable article.
The reasonable headline would be... Experts warn against using USB plugs at airports. Like, that's what it should be. Then you're like, oh, okay, why? And then you can click on it. I understand you can't put all the details in the headline, but this, like, ubiquitous threat in airports, but they don't say it could be bugs. It could be, any kind of pestilence, really. It could be me going around asking people to donate to TBTL. There's all kinds of threats in airports.
Listen, that is not in any way a threat to people.
Well,
that is a way to keep a vibrant podcast in business, sir.
Well,
but
I go
they really
around
need to
saying,
stop doing
why
that.
I oughta, and then I hold out a can.
Okay, I have so much to tell you about the weekend. Do you want to start with the truly unhinged thing that my mother said? Do you want to go with me wandering the fanciest neighborhood in Portland, trying to find their castaways with my Trader Joe's bag? Or do we want to start with you seeing the Pavements movie? These are all, I think, really strong starts to the show.
I want to know how we got trapped in that hall of mirrors during the Super Bowl. Sorry. Had to. First thought, bad thought.
How is The Weeknd? I heard The Weeknd stopped calling himself The Weeknd.
Oh, really?
You know that?
What does he go by now? His, whatever he was born with?
Maybe. I think his name might be like Abraham Tesfaye or something. I think he might be Ethiopian Canadian. I'd go with Abraham Tesfaye.
That's a good name.
Can I get, by the way, if I know The Weeknd's real name, how close am I on that? Can we Google that? I feel like I need, let's see, The Week. Also, you have to remember, I don't think he doesn't leave the E in it. Abel McConan Tesfaye. Okay, I had the A and the Tesfaye right. Well, it's a Tesfaye. But McConan. I didn't see McConan coming. Anyway,
yes. So we can start wherever you would like, as far as.
Let's start let me get this mom thing off of my chest because, although placing it here on the show means there's a chance that my mom will hear this. Which
you should have buried
I don't know how
it.
she's going to feel about it, but yeah, I should have buried it. But so my mom and my dad and my sister Rachel stayed over at my place on Saturday night. It was really super fun Saturday. We went down to my sister Sarah and Josh's place, and my brother-in-law, Josh, of course, is a chef extraordinaire and made these incredible pizzas in this pizza oven he has. By the way, my new goal in life is to have a pizza oven and to make pizzas as well as my brother-in-law, Josh, did. But after that, my folks and my sister Rachel came back and stayed at my place. And I went to sleep on Saturday night, and what I did not realize was I was going to enter a borderline comatose state. Like, we were sitting around talking. It was maybe 11:30, and then I went to sleep, And Andrew, I did not wake up, and not only did I not wake up, I didn't even get up to pee until 9:48 a.m. That is way late for me to sleep in, and so late that when I got up, first of all the coffee was gone. Thanks, guys. And everybody was sitting out on the deck and enjoying the river.
When you say all the coffee was gone, you mean the pot that was made was emptied, or there was no more coffee in the house to make another pot?
Well, no, we like you, we get a regular broadcast coffee delivery around here. Thanks, Barry. But yeah, there was coffee that could have been made, but the coffee had been consumed. And I thought, really, guys?
Because the only time I've been to that place, we had to go on emergency coffee runs because you were out of coffee, if you'll recall.
I think it was an emergency half and half run, and John got non-fat half and half, which I understand because of how svelte I am, but I don't like non-fat half and half. Maybe it was both.
It was both. I think that we had coffee on the first day.
It was both.
It is both. That reminds me of a commercial that I saw recently from the 90s where there's a man and a woman. They're out on this nice picnic at, like, I'm going to say it's a Hollywood Bowl situation. They're about to see some classical music, and she's laying out this nice picnic, and then she pulls out, like, Kraft fat-free ranch or whatever, and the fella, it ruins the date for a moment. Like, the guy is such a jerk about it. He's like, do you have anything else? And I'm like, dude, like, this is a nice spread. You can't dip your carrots in this and just shut up for, like, just one Sonata.
Are you or are you not trying to smash?
Right.
By the way, was it an ad for full fat ranch? What was the objective of negging a fat-free ranch?
Well, eventually he tries it, and it turns out he does like it. Of course, it was for Kraft fat-free, but he was like, I'm not going to eat that. She's like, well, try it. And I'm just like, come on, man. That's such a bad look.
Would you, though, on, like, let's say date 4 with Genevieve, if she poured ranch of any kind?
No. I mean, I wouldn't eat the ranch at all, but I would just say, I'm sorry.
You've never smashed.
I'm sorry. Well, we're waiting. I would just say, I'm sorry, I don't eat that. But I certainly wouldn't criticize the choice of, you know. Anyway, go ahead. I feel like I've
I come out to the deck, coffeeless, because my family, who I'm putting up at no cost to them, has consumed all of the coffee. Well, you heard there was me not knowing what the past tense of to drink is. Drankin?
Drunken.
All
drankin. I think you're right with drankin.
Drankin. And so I sit down, I'm chatting with Rachel, and Rachel goes, oh, wow, you slept in? I was like, yeah, I know, that's insane. Like, I really do not tend to sleep in that late, and I don't know what was going on, but boy, it was really restful. And she goes, Mom just said to me, I wonder if he killed himself and wrote a note leaving the house to Dad.
That, as they say, escalated quickly.
And I go, what, Mom? She goes, I know, the things that go through your head.
Not my head,
I was
Mom.
Like, your head? What?
That is so many levels of...
I mean, first of all, the thing I was most mad is she thinks I'm going to leave the house to my dad.
And is that what? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like that.
Yeah.
That was a surprising twist there. But now I'm wondering, is that where it all started? Actually,
she wants the house. I'm like, I haven't paid this guy enough working on the house. I pay him to build the house, and I leave him the house. Get real.
Leaving the house to
but
me.
Also, like, like, and then I told this to Becca, and she goes, didn't you guys have a great Saturday night? I go, yeah, we did. Like, first of all, it's the fact, and I know this isn't how, you know, people ending their life works, but like, it would be very out of the blue considering the Saturday that we all had together. I know that's not how this works, but like the fact that her mind went there just even as an idea is weird. Also, hey, Mom, knock on the door. There's also, again, I'm not giving the house to my child. I'm giving the house to your husband. Like, it was intense.
I would have first thought that you had created a fake Luke under the covers with a bunch of pillows, and you'd snuck out the window.
Thank you.
To go maybe gallivanting at a local casino.
Or reinvent myself. As some sort of
pillow beast.
Latin lover.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to Mexico. I'm going to run a strip club in Zihuatanejo. I don't know. This narrative is so
honestly. Now I am hearing how you're your mother's son. You're both unhinged. Now that
but in different ways.
Why didn't
if my mom sleeps until 10, I don't think she killed herself and left me the house.
All I'm saying is why didn't my mom assume that I had snuck out to become a Latin lover south of the border? That's all I want to know.
That's all. As a good boy, that's all.
Wait, I do have a real question about your family dynamic, though.
Yes.
So,
an answer.
It was, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but it was Sarah's birthday. Yes. Now,
yeah, hey, good. By the way, that's a solid remembering. It was Sarah's birthday on Thursday.
It's good remembering because now I want to stir some pots up because I believe it was your sister Hannah who wrote in to wish Sarah a happy Blur's Day during the Blur's Day segment.
I've got an update on that, by the way.
Yeah, and you were like, oh, she sort of stole my language. She sort of, Bidened it, if you will, or Hegseths it. Why am I having so much trouble? I'm trying to think of all the people who
plagiarized.
Famously plagiarized, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, and so there was some beef there on the show. I wasn't sure if they had heard it or how that all kind of handled itself.
Well, this is how that worked itself out. There was a text that went around to the Hawk Squad from my sister Hannah, and I'm scrolling back because the Hawk Squad is a very, very active place where there are so many texts. Hannah texted to the Hawk Squad and said, you should listen to, she's telling everybody in my family, you should listen to TBTL because I wished Sarah a happy birthday. And Luke said, here we go, from Hannah, Friday, 6:01 p.m. Sari, listen to TBTL yesterday since I gave you the best Blur's Day message that Luke is saying I stole from him. I kind of did without realizing it.
Okay.
All right. So she admitted, oh my God, she admitted.
So
Hannah is admitting officially in the record that she did mildly steal her birthday wish to my sister from me, where I said basically that Sarah is wildly inappropriate, and that's what we love about her.
And you were offended because you famously are anti-plagiarism. In fact, you had a great joke you did about it in a stand-up bit you did.
I did. Yes. I said I was. I said I was on I was on a ski lift next to a guy, and we started talking, and he said, "I just got out of jail for killing a complete stranger," and I said, "Hey, don't I know you?" One of the jokes was him trying to identify with a stranger as a friend so they would not kill him on the ski lift.
I know you.
The other thing that I did...
we've told the story. You've told the story about plagiarizing.
I haven't gotten into the specifics of the joke.
If you've ever specifically said the joke, I had forgotten it. And I will say, Stephen
Wright. It's a good joke, right?
You got a future in comedy. Yeah.
This is why I got second place, or third place, I believe, in the Snow King Stars of Tomorrow Kiwanis Club thing. The other thing that we did this weekend, Andrew, was attended a Junior Sluggers baseball game wherein Coach Ben gave me this thing that I am so incredibly proud of. I'm showing it to you on the little Riverside connection. It's a plaque of the TBTL. Well, they're called the Gators. I don't recognize that's their government name. They are the Gators of the Parkside Little League, sponsored by TBTL, and then in quotes it says "Your TBTL Junior Sluggers."
Yes,
and it's a photo of the kids and the coaches. And Andrew, when I tell you that I have been like carrying this thing around like some sort of treasure, like it came in a little sort of plastic sleeve, and I've been doing all this stuff this weekend. I went to Costco, I went garage sailing in Irvington with my Trader Joe's bag, and through all my journeys this weekend, I've had one goal in mind, which is it's like I've been like Frodo with the ring with this thing. I've been carefully taking care of it so that I can put it in a place of honor in the TBTL backdrop.
That's very nice. Yeah, it's like
Isn't
a nice
cool?
wooden plaque with a kind of a copper inscripted.
Apologies to Jamie in Mississippi. It is now sitting in front of the Madrone Hill studio sign,
and it's got the team picture there. I told you that in I know that the Junior Sluggers have beat my team already at this. Remember, I had many team photos. I played t-ball, then I think like Little League up until maybe 5th grade. And one of those photos, poor Charlie Neff peed his pants. And he's like, it's just history right there. It's like that exact kind of photo, the whole team, facing the camera. And I think Charlie was kind of short too, so he was in the front row. And I was like, oh, geez.
I'm checking to see if any of these kids looks it's looking dry.
That's great.
It's looking like we didn't have. Now,
That's
it's
a
actually
win
funny
right
you would say
there.
that because I remember when I played for Domino's Pizza, we took a team photo, and right before the team photo, we were all standing around kind of, to the side of the field. Another team was playing, and somebody hit a foul ball, like popped a foul ball up, and it came down and hit me right in my kidney.
Whoa.
Like a foul ball came out of nowhere, hit me in the small of my back, and it was so painful. And then right after that, we had to take the team photo.
Did it
I'm
ricochet off of something? This sounds a little like back and to the left. What is going on with this magic foul ball?
Listen, are you doubting my childhood experience?
No, I'm not.
We were pretty
if that's
far.
a serious question. No, I am just trying to figure out how does a ball hit you in the lower back when it's a foul ball.
Well, first of all, we were kind of far away from the actual. So this was at Lower Woodland.
Oh yeah.
If you can picture it, over there at the intersection of, it's basically kind of near the sort of Woodland Park Zoo, but it's that area that's. There used to be a Kid Valley there. Is there still a Kid Valley over there?
I don't. Oh, there might be. I'm not sure, but it's like that's Green. Is that Green Lake Way, by the way?
Yeah,
it's Green Lake. In the
I
intersection.
think Green Lake Way has turned at the golf course and is hugging Green Lake. But anyway, it was that field, and we were not like right up against the fence. We were kind of pretty far away from the field to take this picture. So I guess the ball somehow was popped up and then came. You're right. The trajectory of it is weird. But what I just remember is like we're standing around, we're getting ready for the team photo, and then all of a sudden a ball just thwacks me right in my friggin' kidney.
Grimacing in the photo.
Dude, crying. Crying. I had no toughness. Nowadays I wouldn't cry because I'm tough.
No, I know.
In those days, I was not tough. I actually was telling Becca another story of me crying on the baseball field this weekend. I had a lot of youth baseball on the brain. It was because a kid got hit by a pitch. Actually, I think it might have been our guy Cold Brew.
Oh,
AKA
nice.
Yarrow. Yarrow got hit by a pitch, I believe, but absolutely just like stoic.
Nice.
Like, look out, Marcus Aurelius.
That's the
There's a new
coldest thing,
stoic.
man. Speaking of Cold Brew, I mean, that is perfect for Cold Brew, right?
Yes.
Like, you just don't show pain. Just ice in the veins, iced coffee.
And just kind of walked it off. And then actually, I think this is who was hit. Apologies if I'm getting the name of the junior slugger wrong. But then later, this player came around, and this player's mom said, "Do you need some ice? Do you want some ice?" And he goes, "Eh."
Ugh, love that.
That was not how I handled things, Andrew, when I was trying out for the All-Star team, and was hit in the back by a pitch from the coach. It was like a coach was pitching batting practice, and somehow nailed me in the back. And I remember just going down and crying so hard. And I did make the All-Star team. They never let me play, so that's probably related.
Did you say, "I'm going to take my base"? And they're like, "It's just batting practice." You're like, "I'm going to take my base."
Do you understand how this affects my OPS? Wait, what? But OPS is a combination of
on
slugging,
base plus slugging.
On base plus slugging. So it's basically like does slugging only relate to home runs, or is it?
It means
also
anything
just
more
like
than a
hitting
single.
for power.
It's more
anything more than a single.
Yeah.
So basically, OPS is what again?
OPS is on base plus slugging. That's why it's a pretty high number. So it takes your on base percentage plus your slugging, and it just combines them. So it's usually in like the 700s or something.
I
like
see.
that.
So you could you have an over 1,000 OPS? Is that
That's a good point.
possible?
No.
I mean, you theoretically could, though, right? Because
I guess you theoretically could if you were. Yeah, I guess if you're getting on base 100% of the time. Yeah. And if you were like getting doubles 100% of the time.
Well, anyway,
you're asking the wrong person.
Everybody on the Sluggers has an 1,100 OPS.
Nice.
Because I'll tell you what, these kids, it was so fun to get to watch these kids play baseball, and also to watch Coach Ben. He'll probably hear this. Coach Ben coach. When we rolled up, Andrew, there was a crisis that was unfolding. The first crisis was we went to the wrong field because there was a miscommunication. So then we got to the right field, and we walked up right as the game was starting. And a Sluggers player, who will remain nameless just because this was an emotional moment for them, legged out a single. They ripped the ball down to the third baseman, and then they ran it. They legged it out. They got to first safe, but what they did was they turned in. In other words, they turned towards second. They weren't trying to run to second. They ran through the bag.
Yeah.
But instead of turning right into foul territory, they turned left and were kind of walking back to the base. And the players for the other team, one of the players had the ball in his mitt and tagged our player out.
At first.
You cannot turn left at first because if you do, it would be impossible for the other team to know if you were trying to run to second or not.
Right.
So you can run through the bag, but you can't turn left.
Yeah.
But this is also not a thing that, I don't know what the exact age of the Sluggers is. It's looking like it's in maybe the 9-year-old department, but it's not necessarily a thing every 9-year-old player would know. And to be honest with you, I would have really liked it if the coach of there was also, this is an added element to it, there wasn't an umpire. There was not an impartial umpire at the game. It was speculated that the umpire also went to the wrong field. Like normally there is an umpire. There was no umpire. This was the coaches had to kind of call the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which should generally be okay, I think, because everybody should recognize these are kids. They're learning the game. We should be pretty chill about this. Well, a coach for the other team happened to be at first base and called our player to be out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where it was like that coach was not wrong. It was slightly illegal what our kid did. But as the game would unfold and as the Sluggers would end up losing by a substantial margin of runs to what I'm going to call the bad guys, I would have liked it if that coach would have just kind of been like, hey, next time you can't turn left, you got to turn right.
Yeah,
it
like
could have been a
especially if it seemed
moment.
like the kid was, if the junior slugger, I should say, if the player, if the baller,
yes, the athlete,
if the student athlete were actually like kind of playing at a level where it was kind of clear they were trying to be a little sneaky there. You know what I mean? Like there are rules in football. If you're the quarterback, there are rules. Like you got to be very, very careful tackling a quarterback, right? And so the quarterbacks are supposed to understand that. And so when they go into a slide at one point, you're not supposed to touch them. They're going down. But then there are some quarterbacks, I think at the college level, who made headlines because they would like sort of fake sliding, but then wouldn't fully slide.
Mahomes.
Was that Mahomes?
I mean, not fake sliding. That's different. That's just being generally like a, kind of like baiting the defense into getting a penalty. But I guess that's different than a fake slide.
But yeah, there was everybody's scared to kind of touch the quarterbacks at the level of Mahomes. But there was this is years ago, like some famous college play where this ace quarterback like kind of looked like he was going to go into a slide. Everybody like backs up. And then he just keeps running. And it's like, okay, this is an athlete. This is a student athlete who is gaming the system here, right? Like it's the spirit. And I just don't believe, and I wasn't there, and I'm only hearing this from you who has a Doug on this flight, but I don't feel that our junior sluggers were looking to game the system by maybe I'll go to second, maybe I won't, but that seems overly strict in the spirit of these games.
I 100% agree. This was, I'm going to use a word here that is, if there are any junior sluggers listening, cover your ears. This coach was being kind of a and but what it meant was that Coach Ben was now thrust into a situation because the parent of this player was our player was also unhappy that her son was now crying because of how this play unfolded, and she was like, said literally, I heard her utter, "Well, I got it on video, and I don't think he turned left." And I'm just like, we're walking up to the field, and I'm like, wow, okay, are we about to be on TikTok? Because are we about to be showing the other team a cell phone video of whether or not the student athlete turned left or right? Like, and I felt very bad for Coach Ben being in the midst of all of this, because it was like either you go super hard for your team and you get into it with the other team, when in fact they were not wrong based on the rules, or you are now kind of not sticking up for your team enough. Like I just was like, I was very relieved to not be the coach in this situation.
Yeah.
And I felt very much for Coach Ben.
So what I know of Ben is that he probably just sort of smoothed things over, took the out, right? I'm assuming, and just sort of
took the out and said something that I think was this is something that we can all apply to our life in a lot of different situations. He just said, everybody's doing their best out there.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well said, sir.
Yeah.
Like that. And do I think it was the best of the coach of the other team to call it an out? No, but in his own mind, he was doing his best.
Mm-hmm.
What he was doing was saying, these are the rules. And also, by the way, I will say this, the coach that said that, when they asked, like, is he out? He goes, well, I called him out. Like, he said it in a way that was also a little bit like,
yeah,
he was leaving the door a little bit open. He was saying, they were like, was he out? And he was like, well, I called him out. Like, I did do that.
Yeah, right.
But
he
wasn't being like, so I know I just said he was being a D word.
Right.
He wasn't actually being the most D word he could have been about it. He just was, again, everybody involved was in a situation where there was, I was going to say no playbook, but there's literally a playbook. But you know what I mean? Everybody involved was like an adult who was trying to figure out how to be in adult life, whether it was the coach who said, well, the guy did go the wrong way, or the other coach who had to talk to the parent who was also being an adult, defending their kid. Like, everyone was in an adult moment that they did not expect to be in and had to figure out how to get through it.
I don't know who this junior slugger is, but I hope that they follow me on Blue Sky, because
Blueski?
First of all, I could use the clicks. Secondly, yesterday I retweeted, or sometime over the weekend, I rebleeded a very what I thought was sort of an interesting play.
Did you pick up my lamb impression?
Oh, I did. That was very good. Sorry, I thought you were doing Clinton.
That's my other really good impression.
George Springer? He plays for the Blue Jays.
Oh,
I don't know what he plays for the Blue Jays.
One-time Houston Astro.
Yes, that's right, because he gets the booze raining down on him whenever he plays up here.
That's well, he should.
The Blue Jays were playing, I want to say, the Sacramento Athletics. I know. This weekend, I'm pretty sure that was the team. It doesn't really matter that much. But my understanding of what happened, and I only saw a very small clip of this, is George Springer hits, I believe, a triple. You thought he was born on third, but he actually hit a triple.
Oh, he hit a triple.
Hit a triple, and I believe it certainly was an RBI triple, because a runner in scoring position does score, but then Springer does this thing where he gets into third, and he's just sort of bouncing. Like, and as I pointed out on Blue Sky, maybe that's why they call him Springer. He just does this thing of, I was going to say joy, but it's almost like very childlike, sort of. It's a fun little moment where he kind of lands on the bag and he just sort of jumps 3 times. But the third baseman just is keeping his glove to him, and he happens to get him when he comes off the bag. And again, he's not trying to make a baseball move. I don't think that's a phrase, but he's not trying to do anything. He's just sort of like instinctively like, I just got a triple, and he just sort of bounces up and down like a little bunny rabbit 3 times. Very, just not huge off the bag, just a little bit. But in bouncing, they call him out. And I guess the runner scores, but they call him out at third. And it was just like, it was just play. And to talk about like really
Did you see Ty France do a playful thing with Crawford on Sunday?
Oh, no, I didn't get to see anything on Sunday.
You were volunteering for the homeless.
Yeah, but I was listening. I mean, I was listening. When I said see, I meant that I was listening to part of the game, but I definitely didn't have eyes on any of it.
I think there was the pitcher, Crawford was on first base, and the pitcher threw to first, and he dove back, and Ty France took the ball and did like knock on his batting helmet.
He's good. He's done that before. That's when I realized I liked Ty France. I don't know if you remember that I told you that he did something very similar before when he played for the Mariners, and I was like, oh, he's got a sense of humor. And then once you sort of know that, it totally unlocks. He's got this little he almost got beamed by a ball in the head from I can't remember who was pitching on like Friday night, and he just kind of smiled at him because this is his ex-teammate, and he just did this very small little Bazooka Joe grin at him. I'm like, I really like this guy.
It made me really happy. I mean, he almost absolutely pwned us last night, yesterday when he got a single in the 9th. Was it? was it in the night? Yeah, when they tied it up, I think he got a single, and it was weird because I was like kind of rooting for him.
Yeah, generally
because I wanted him
speaking,
to do well, but when he's seeing his old mates, but also I was like, but not now, Ty, please. And then he gets a single, and then they end up tying the game. But yeah, so it was like this idea that like J.P. Crawford had thrown, I don't know, 100,000 balls to Ty France at first base over the course of their knowing of each other, and now J.P. Crawford is diving back to the bag, and he's clearly not going to be thrown out.
Yeah.
But Ty France is just like
knock, knock.
on his helmet, like takes the ball out and doots him. I was like, oh, that's
really sweet. Yeah, no, I really like that guy.
That.
I do wish the best for him, generally speaking, and I'm glad he's in a Twins uniform if it's not a Mariners uniform. I think
exactly. If he's going to go somewhere and prosper, we hope it's with the Twins. It was a real. I don't know if you remember that meme where those two guys were like, this was a long time ago, but it was like. This guy basically put this thing out that was like, I'm not friends with this other guy anymore.
Yeah, I saw that you
and
posted
everyone was kind of like,
that.
why are no one was noticing, but okay. And then because our friend the Stewbot is of course a Minnesota Twins fan, and this was a fraught weekend because both teams can't win, and if it's not against the Mariners, I'm hardcore pro Minnesota Twins, but it was like basically. I told Stu on the text chain, I said, whatever happens this weekend, the Mariners need to win. And then, of course, we had a quite dispiriting loss to them the first game. I think Stu might have gone to bed, by the way.
Yeah,
because the Mariners jumped out to a 4-run lead. And then I said something like, give Gabe Spires time.
Yeah.
Although he, in fact, was not the problem. It was like, I think it might have been Snyder. We end up losing the game in a really dispiriting fashion. And then the next, Saturday morning, it's like a text from Stu. I did not see that coming.
I want to talk about culture here for a second, and this is going to be a little bit about baseball, but it's mostly going to be about how we present ourselves in public if we want people to take us seriously and if we want a job in the future. This is an anti-tattoo screed. No, I don't know. I said culture, and it sounded like I was going to get into some respectability. No.
Are you trying to talk me out of my neck tattoo I'm getting?
Are you going to get one? You should.
I'm thinking about getting Frank Zappa here
no.
on my neck because do you know that my John Prine tattoo is morphing into Frank Zappa
as my
the
mustache.
My skin crepes?
Wait till it becomes a Wilford Brimley.
Oh, I would welcome a Wilford
Brimley.
Brimley.
What if it aged with you color-wise? What if somehow the mustache and the hair become white over time?
It's definitely I'm getting much more Frank Zappa than I am John Prine. If I get a John Prine in the wild, which is pretty rare,
you mean somebody spotting it and commenting on it?
Somebody saying, "Oh, is that John Prine?" That's probably happened 5 times total. People saying, "Is that Frank Zappa?" has probably happened 20 times total, which seems like a lot.
I could see that. I mean, of course, I knew it's like, what did I do an impression of before the show? You're like, that's a good impression. I'm like, it was a terrible impression. I told you the name of the person I was doing before I did it. Oh, it was Kenneth Parcell I'm like, this is Kenneth Parcell from 30 Rock. Then I did an imitation. You're like, that was good. I'm like, no, it wasn't. You're like, I knew who it was. I'm like, yeah, because I said it 15 seconds earlier. But I knew that I don't think I would have confused that with a Frank Zappa tattoo is what I'm saying. But I've always known it not to be a Frank Zappa tattoo. So I don't want to get too much into baseball here, but something strange happened.
This is actually good, Andrew, because there's a chance that somebody named Casey from the Apple Store is listening right now, who is a baseball fan.
Okay.
And sold me a computer yesterday.
Oh, good. You got a new computer. That's going to
I did get a new computer. I haven't set it up yet, but I have a new computer. So if Casey's listening, who is a baseball fan, this is for you. We're programming towards Casey right now with baseball talk.
I feel terrible about not knowing the answer to what's the highest on base plus slugging you can get. I looked it up. It is, if you got a home run at every at bat, you would have a 4,000 OPS.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So I guess Ohtani has a 4,000.
Yeah, because it is based, I guess, on whether it's a double or a single or a home run. At least that's what AI taught me in the moments since you asked me that question. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about was Mariners culture over the weekend, because I think you were aware of some of it. I don't know what degree you realize it was widespread, but so I'm on Blue Sky, or Blue Ski as we call it. Primarily, I realize now, as just a way of communicating with other Mariners fans. Like, my whole Blue Sky account is just Mariners talk, with the occasional George Springer bouncing on a bag gif. But, that's it. And that is what I really missed from the old Twitter website, right, was that baseball community. And there's something you should know about this kind of tight-knit baseball online community. it's not toxic. And I don't mean it's like non-toxic like a Crayola crayon. It's just, it's not,
I can eat this.
You can eat it.
Or I cannot.
I feel like you can eat this. Okay. I don't know if you would want to. I don't know if it would be super like filling. I don't know if it's stick to your ribs material, but it is just like a bunch of people that are generally very into the game. There are moments of frustration. There's a lot of good humor though. And there are times when a fan base has sort of had enough and they reach maybe a nadir. How do you say that? Nadir?
I'm not sure how to say it either, but you're using the word correctly.
Nadir. One example of this, and I probably use it too much, but I remember this moment like 5 seasons ago, if not more, when the Mariners had just had this historic comeback against the Astros, and then they traded their closer to the Astros mid-series the next day, and that was the Graveman trade. And I just recently got into an argument about whether or not we won that trade or not. I'm not doing it again. Not doing it here.
Wow.
That
was me trying to play a file of how to pronounce nadir.
Oh, okay.
But
well,
what in the heck was that?
We've moved on. My point is
I haven't.
That moment,
I may never move on.
When they traded Graveman, it was one of those moments where there was despair across Mariners land. Like I had not really experienced before, whether it was from like listening to the Real Baseball Junkies on the local sports station to anything that you saw online to conversations with your friends. It was just like this, why would you trade away kind of our ace bullpen pitcher? And it was just like this outward sort of just like sports bleeding. Everybody was just so bummed and confused and angry. That was Kenneth from 30
That was
Rock.
my Kenneth Parcell.
And weirdly, that happened again on like May 29th, which is pretty early in the season. And
we hadn't traded
anybody. We had just lost a game in extra innings to the Twins, the first game of a series. Now, there's a lot of context here that we can, fill in a little bit. It was like,
heartbreaking?
It was a heartbreaking loss that came in a fashion after a heartbreaking loss that was very similar the day before. Extra innings, complete bullpen collapse, a lot of people complaining and blaming the manager and all this stuff. I don't want to get kind of into all the ins and outs. And it really did come off of like several games that sort of followed that pattern in very recent history. And the game before was an absolute heartbreaker. And then to see it happen again at the beginning of the series, and then you combine it with it's the first game of the series. We're at home. Everybody's just assuming now that the series is sort of lost. But like we had some real, I mean, you and one of your brothers had like a real like sort of like
I had to call my brother. I attempted to call my brother directly related to that text chain, which never happens on a Friday night.
And I don't even remember like what you guys were I was sort of following you guys, but also just like the Twitter sphere, the blue skiosphere, as they call it, like people who are level-headed and mostly turn to humor in dark times of Mariner love. Dark Times of Mariner Love is going to be the name of my romance novel, but like are just like at their wits' end. And then there's a relatively new kind of podcast that goes live after Mariners games, and I really like these two guys.
That's a really good idea.
It's a really good idea because they got me. They have these two other guys.
I might start messing with that.
Yes, and it's live on YouTube. You can wait for the podcast, but if you like basically, and I need them more after losses than wins, really, because they're too. By the way, I sent it to our buddy. Well, I sent it to our buddy, and he pointed out that the name of one of the hosts is Anderson Hurst. Durs Hurst is one of the hosts of the show. But even these guys, like I know that his kind of the maybe what we would say maybe the co-host guy has made references before in the past about how like if he's watching a game and he gets too upset like he has to buy a new remote control. So, but he says it with a smile, and the vibe of the show is like very, not non-critical, but generally upbeat. It's these two guys, and they're talking about the loss or whatever.
It's informed,
and even one of them.
It's not overly critical. It's a blessing to everyone, like me on the text chain.
I'm watching their show live after that Friday game, and one of them is talking and giving an analysis, and then he just says, "I'm done talking now. You have to say something, Anders," or whatever. And I was like, "Oh!" And I even heard a shaking in his voice, and like, I think it was like. Everybody just has seen this team do the same thing year in and year out, especially long-time Mariners fans, and it's way too early. Any reasonable person would say it is way too early in the season, especially where we are right now. We don't have the White Sox record or the Diamondbacks record. Like, it's way too early. Or Rockies, sorry, Diamondbacks. You're doing all right. And so it was very strange just to collectively see the Mariners fan base feel like they wanted to, kill themselves in the middle of the night and give their houses
and then leave
to
a note
your dad.
giving the house to their dad.
For some reason. It was really, really strange. And then we come back and we end up winning the next 2 games, so we win the series. And
by the way, almost equally heartbreaking fashion for the Twins.
And I saw
Have we listened to the Twins podcast lately?
And I saw somebody post on Twitter on Sunday night, we just won a series, but I swear to God, we lost all 3 games. Like, people just could not shake the feeling of the series.
Yeah.
This series was so fraught, Luke. So fraught. I don't think people realized that we won the series. Like, it's just like, what I saw on Friday night was really bananas. It was a real low point for the culture.
Well, I wonder because if we go back to our Mariners history, that communal freakout, which I was part of, that community-wide freakout when they traded Graveman to the Astros, which was extra bad because those are our sworn enemies. So it's just like, come on.
And we were in the middle of a series with them, and I think we came back from like a 10-run deficit to beat them the night before.
And we, by the way, ended up, I believe, going to the playoffs that season.
Oh, yeah. Was that the season?
I think we went on a tear after that. I think we might have.
I don't think it was a season. I think that.
Okay, well, then it's probably one of those seasons we missed the playoffs by 2 games. What I know is we actually played really well for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Surprisingly well. Here's what I know. I know that in the aftermath of that, I think we went on a pretty decent win streak. So maybe this will have the same effect. Whereas because I'm with you, that Friday night was a. It was a dark time of the soul, a dark night of the soul. So maybe something shook loose, and now we're gonna actually play pretty well. We did go on to win 2 games after that. So
I want you to know I looked this up just because I thought you might be right, and I didn't want it on the record. But it was the year before we went to the playoffs, so this is 2021, just for whatever it's worth. But the Mariners did. I still say Graveman for Abraham Toro. I still don't think
that was a Toro really overperformed, So
I guess later he got a really
wasn't
slow
Abraham
start.
Toro a Blue Jay though? He was an Astro.
We got him from the Astros. I don't know what if he was before that, but
maybe
I remember,
he's Canadian, I think. So he's culturally a Blue Jay to me.
Yeah, and I just remember he got off to a really slow start, and it was really hard not to constantly make the comparison. I think he ended up being serviceable, both literally and figuratively, because he played for Scott Service. I believe he was serviceable, but never. And everybody was so despondent about him coming here because we were losing Graveman that I know that there was also a contingency of Mariners fans who just were trying to be as gracious to Toro as possible, like a welcoming committee or whatever, because he was just a good guy who just played, who just wants to play baseball for the Mariners, and everybody saw his face as the face of
You're the anti. You're our stepdad,
exactly,
and we like our real dad.
Anyway, everybody's doing okay now, I think, and we're all going to be fine. But I just wasn't sure if you had picked up, aside from the text chain, any of the kind of widespread cataclysmic attitude of Mariners.
I felt it, but I was doing my normal thing, which I was being strong for all of us.
Yes.
Because if you look back on the text chain, actually, you know what? I'm really proud of this text that I sent to the criminals that night. And again, just for folks that don't follow this, it was just a real gutting game for us to lose. And David from the basement said, "Don't block me, Luke, but that is the worst loss of the season. That is the type of game that breaks a team completely." So there you go. Maybe he was listening to that podcast. And then I said, what I'll say is, if they were broke, they were already broke. If they are fundamentally sound, which is questionable, it's a long season. We're now a half game out of first place with our 2 best starters soon to return. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards Logan Gilbert. And, so far that has, not that Logan Gilbert's been involved, but we did come back to win the next 2 games. So, I was being strong for all of us.
Should we talk about technology for a split second, then thank the donors? Because I am also really confused. I was a little confused about that the timing
When I
of
said, am
all
I on
of the
delay?
text because David sent that text before the game was over. I'm quite convinced of that. It did feel like you were on some sort of a longer delay than the rest of us, but then it felt like I was also on a delay. I couldn't tell if David was being literal or he was just foreseeing this loss. I was very confused about where we all were in the timeline.
I was checking my Fubo. I was like, maybe, and that wasn't a sarcastic question from me. I thought maybe, you know what I mean when I said, am I on delay? Because I literally was like, I think I'm up to speed on this, and I think it's still the 10th inning, and I think we actually are tied right now. Maybe we were down a run. I mean, eventually it completely, unraveled, exactly.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I was confused because I thought like maybe Fubo is giving this to me 10 seconds late.
Me too.
And something really bad has happened that I don't know about it yet.
And because you did comment on something, I'm like, oh, Luke might be slightly delayed on something. But then with this one, I was like, am I delayed? I don't know. I think, man, I just think there was a lot of bad juju going on, and it might have been affecting the space-time continuum on Friday. I'm kind of glad to be on the other side of it.
I am as well. Thankfully, and also I'm kind of bummed they're off today because I feel like we just need to keep this. We need to keep this luck train rolling.
That's
interesting. But I guess the guys deserve a day off.
We was hoping for some razzle-dazzle.
Razzle-dazzle.
That's right, man. Razzle-dazzle.
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready. Go.
Everybody razzle dazzle.
All right, let's thank some dazzling donors. These are the wonderful, generous people that are donating a dazzling amount of dough to keep TBTL in business. This is 100% listener-supported podcasting. When I was getting my new computer yesterday at the Apple Store, and the guy there was asking, well, what do you use it for? And I said, podcasting, mostly. It sounds like a made-up thing. But, in fact, this is our job, and it's because of folks like Farron Shear. Farron sounds like Fahrenheit. Or so the other children told me growing up.
Oh.
Try leukoplakia, Farron.
Leukoplakia is a pretty... those kids were really up on their precancerous
On their
scares.
mouth cancers.
Yeah.
No, you know what it was? It was the movie Lucas. There was a movie called Lucas where I believe Corey Haim plays a nerdy kid who gets bullied by Charlie Sheen, who's also a kid at the time. And I believe that, I don't know if Charlie Sheen says this, but there's a bunch of different bad nicknames for Lucas, and one of them is leukoplakia.
I see. So the kids are
so
just
clearly
grabbing
like
this
a
from the
Hollywood
movies.
screenwriter wrote the word leukoplakia into a movie about bullying a kid named Lucas, which then made its way into the culture of my life as a kid, which, by the way, didn't bother me. I was very lucky as a kid that because I wasn't bullied hardcore, if someone tried to bully me, it didn't get to my sense of self the way it would have if that was a regular thing. That was a privileged position for me to be in. That I remember thinking like, what are we, mouth cancer specialists now? What's going on?
Looking this up. Well, I did not. This is not the proper place to have this conversation. As
Farron Shear's dazzling donor message is not the place for us to have this conversation.
Well, what I'm about to say is going to get raw. No,
Okay.
You said that like you were lucky it didn't hurt you that much because you weren't bullied so intensely, let's say. But it's kind of like, and I look at me who was bullied intensely, but I can't, and I'm not trying to blame the victim here, but I do think that it's kind of this vicious cycle, right? Of like, because I was showing my belly in a certain way or was like was so easily exposed, my vulnerability is so easily exposed, that sort of like, I sort of felt like built steam. You know what I mean? One sort of fed the other. And that sounds really blaming the victim, but like, I think that I could just sort of feel like, oh yeah, why do certain kids, they just can take the slings and arrows and certain kids can't, and I was not a kid who could
But
take
what
it.
I would say is I think that I mean, that's a real chicken or egg thing, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's kind of what I mean.
My theory is that I was able to handle being called leukoplakia because it wasn't happening so much that it became a thing for me.
Yeah.
But had it happened more, I might have responded to it differently. Like I don't think that you were just responding poorly and therefore it was happening more. My guess is it was happening more, so you were responding to it sort of extra poorly.
It is interesting. And also that is like a pretty rough attempt at felling someone, right? Calling them
Right.
leukoplegia. Like, that doesn't really cut
honestly,
to the
it was
quick.
just a bad, like, Luke Puke would get me way more than leukoplegia.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Okay, I will not give you that garbage pail, kid. I'm planning on giving you.
Farron is in San Diego, California, and says, "Hi, Andrew, John, Luke, Tens. This is my third attempt to write something that honors the value TBTL brings to my life without descending into a doom spiral over gestures vaguely everywhere."
Mm-hmm.
We were in one of our business boys meetings recently. Actually, maybe it was before a show, but we were talking. John was there, and we were talking about the donors, and we were talking about how it would appear that, like, you talk about like the sort of sedimentary layers or the rings in a tree, or you can learn stuff about the Earth's history based on, the amber, what was caught in the amber at that time. And I think a lot of these dazzling donor messages were written at a particular moment. Not that things are great now. They're not great. But we are all, because we're human beings, we're adjusting, we're reformatting, we're kind of like, things are happening. I think a lot of these messages were written at a particular, to go back to nadir point, Andrew.
Yes.
Nadir point for all of us. So Farron says, all right, to stick to the facts, this is my favorite advertising tax write-off. Please find me in Slack or Instagram if you are near me and in the market for a new hair stylist. Yes, Farron is a hairstylist par excellence.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, it's not just because her last name is also a name for scissors. Okay. That is not the only reason that Farron is incredible at helping people with their hair, but it's a lucky coincidence.
Doesn't hurt.
Number 2, the TBTL Slack is my favorite place to feel encouraged that people really are getting up off the mat. I think that's a phrase from our pal Television's Chris Hayes.
I think you're right.
Shout out to the small but mighty #politics channel. We have a #politics channel in the Slack page, Andrew. This is the first time learning of this.
Mm-hmm.
I like this, though, where I see ideas for real actions screaming into the void or sending virtual hugs. It's a real light in my days. So if you are listening to this right now, and this is something that's interesting to you, jump on the TBTL Slack and jump into that #politics section and scream into the void with Farron and everybody else there. I bet you the more the merrier.
And what
Number
I do
3.
can I just say what I do see in there? There is some screaming into the void, but it's not like, I want to give the channel its fair due here, because if you told me it was just a place where people are just kind of sharing another scary headline after another scary headline after another terrifying headline, like, we get a lot of that. What I really appreciate, and I'm an observer in there, but what I really appreciate about that channel is it is mostly people saying, hey, listen, here's a call to action. If you're feeling like you're really frustrated with what you're seeing in this country and you're, again, kind of scared, but you feel helpless, it's like a lot of people saying, hey, here's this piece of legislation that is being debated right now. Like, here are the numbers of the senators you can call or whatever. There's a lot of calling to action, or, things that are much more local as well. Like, hey, there's a demonstration today or whatever. So I really do appreciate that about the channel. It is not just more doom scrolling, if that's what anybody is worried about.
Number 3 from Farron. One of my current favorite books is Saren McMahon's The Small and the Mighty. Stories about ordinary people doing what they are uniquely good at and end up changing the course of history. I don't know if podcasting is something people are called to do, but I do know that the way y'all do it and the people it has brought together gives me a lot of hope for the future. That's really funny because as I was reading that sentence, I was going to make a joke about TBTL. I was going to say, the small and the mighty, that describes us and our listenership. But that's exactly where Farron was actually going with this. This is a quote from the book.
I'm mighty.
Yeah, this is a quote from the book that I focus on during tough days. Quote, progress is usually born out of struggle, but struggle doesn't always mean progress, does it? What do we need to add to struggle to create progress? The answer is hope. Hope, which attorney and author Brian Stevenson told me is not a feeling, but an orientation of the spirit. Hope is a choice that we make each morning, and we do not have the luxury of hopelessness if we want to see progress. Wow.
Isn't that what you texted your brother during the Mariners game?
It kind of is. I mean, honestly, I would put myself right up there with attorney and author Brian Stevenson in terms of the hope game. Farron says, I hope y'all know how much I adore you. Farron, right back at you. We adore you as well. And we really appreciate you being part of the show for all these years in various ways. Maestro.
I wasn't ready for the maestro, so I was thinking about something, and then I'll maestro this up.
This is good because it's helping me get our next donor's name in order in my brain because it's not a name that I've seen a million times. So this is good. You're actually helping me, sir.
Well, that's why I did it. But I did want to just add one thing to Farron's note, which, as Farron mentioned, and as we mentioned, Farron's an amazing hairstylist. But if you aren't on one of the social media networks or don't know how to get in touch with Farron, you can just email me, andrew@tbtl.net, and I will put you guys in touch. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Good looking out.
Maestro?
On your mark.
Maestro?
On your mark. Get set.
I like calling my own shot.
Ready.
Love it.
Ready. Go.
Calling your own number.
That's right.
It's Rochelle Mortvit in Bremerton, Washington. Oh, my goodness. Mere steps from where Walt and Susie reside.
Oh, that's right.
And
for now.
Exactly. Oh, my
Until
God.
they get your house.
They're not, well, yeah, and they're not going to be listening this far in. One thing I know about my mother is she does dip into the show, but she does not swim this deeply in it. And they are definitely going to move in at some point. The house is mostly one level, which works for them. I didn't even know they were going to be here Saturday night. We were at this thing for my, actually it was DFTB and his lovely wife and their beautiful baby were coming down to Portland. So we all got together at my sister Sarah's house where the pizzas were being made. And that was when I learned that my mom and dad and my sister were, in fact, staying at my house that night.
As opposed to traveling all the way back to their
or
neck
staying
of the woods.
at my sister Sarah's house or out with my sister Liz or, heaven forbid, a hotel. Like, I am officially on now the route, if you will, of my there's nowhere my parents want to be less than their actual house.
It's a nice house.
Which is kind of funny. My mom has a pretty severe case of kind of wanderlust, and just always, and by the way, I got this from her, so this is not a bad thing. But they're always on the move, my folks. Whether they're going to a World Mark, or they're going to Florida to see their friends and stay at a World Mark, or going to stay with one of my sisters, or telling me hours before we're staying at your house tonight.
Now,
Anyway.
World Star, are they also big on World Star?
They are. Sometimes when they get in a fight, my dad will start yelling World Star.
Yeah, that's from my understanding of the
They
situation.
did get in an argument yesterday. The rare,
Oh, I don't like that.
rare Walt and Susie argument. This is how far it went. My mom said, "Did you even dry this shirt of mine? Because it's so wrinkly." She had a shirt on a hanger in my house. Sorry, Rochelle, but this is what you get for living in Bremerton, Washington, near my parents. My mom had a shirt that was on a hanger, and I guess it was wrinkled. And she goes, "Did you even dry these shirts? Because this is so wrinkled." And my dad said something like, "Yeah, I dried all of them. And by the way, I washed your laundry." And she goes, "A lot of it was your laundry, too. You didn't wash my laundry." They had a debate about what amount of laundry constitutes my dad doing my mom's laundry versus my dad doing his. My mom was of the opinion that if she sneaks one shirt into what is otherwise his laundry, then it is not a favor to her because it is his laundry. My dad was of the opinion that he had been basically doing my mom's laundry, so stop complaining about it being wrinkled.
I would say if you've snuck a shirt into somebody else's laundry and you're claiming they didn't do your laundry, you can't complain about how they did your laundry.
Precisely. I mean, the amount of laundry does not matter, but my mom was in a corner, and she doesn't like being cornered at all. So she was going to try to make, and by the way, this explains a lot about my general personality, both on the show and off the show, which is I'm not going to let the facts stand in the way of me feeling aggrieved about something.
Oh, right.
Back to Rochelle. Thanks, Luke, Andrew, and John, for another wonderful year. You are my comfort listening. I did tell the guy at the Apple Store yesterday, as we talked about the podcast, I said, a lot of people say that it's a good thing to fall asleep to. And he laughed at that, which made me think he might be a future listener. I am at least 20 years older than most of the 10s. I wish I could say I am wise, but alas, the older I get, the less I feel certain of that. By the way, Rochelle, I think that means you are wise.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Like, think about a person who, the older they get, the more assured they are in their rightness versus a person who, the older they get, the more that they are open to new ideas and questioning how they've thought about the world. That's the way to be, my friend.
Yeah. I think that, and this is no offense to our younger listeners who might be in this age right now, because it is part of the growing process. But, I know that some of my cringiest moments were when I was maybe let's say in college or around that age, and Luke, I had the world figured out. And I'm not an argumentative person, but like there are just like times when you're really telling your parents how it is, you know, and it's like, because you have a better understanding of it. And what do your parents know? And then, you know, it's 40, I'm, you know, whatever, it's 30 years later or whatever it is, I'm 48 years old, and I'm just kind of like, oh man, I was so strident, and I really thought I had it all figured out, and there was so much living to do. Still so much learning to do.
There's nothing like getting older to really give you some empathy for your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
So Rochelle, good for you, by the way, to feel less certain of it. My only real advice, this is back to Rochelle's message, my only real advice that has served me is, whenever you can, get out into the natural world. Much love from Rochelle, a Bremer 10. Man, you said it, Rochelle. In fact, you know what, Andrew? I just had a thought. This is not exactly the natural world, but I think it's a version of it. I'm going to ride my bike today. I'm going to ride my bike and go get some dinner tonight and out in the semi-natural world because of Rochelle's advice. Like, there's nothing like going on a walk if your body allows for that. There's nothing like getting out in the world and being around grass and trees and water and things like that to just kind of like, you know, just reframe things and just kind of give your brain a little break from everything. So Rochelle, thank you for the tip. I'm gonna, that's actionable. I'm gonna action on that tonight and probably bore everybody with my story of bike riding tomorrow. By the way, I'm getting better at riding up the hill back to my house now.
Oh, nice. Well, that's really
It's
important.
all about pacing. So the first time because I got this e-bike, and I thought it was going to be like a motorcycle. When I thought I was going to be flying back up the hill. And so the first couple times that I did it, I was like, I rode too hard at the beginning of the hill. And so basically I sort of pooped out midway up the hill. And then I was mad at the e-bike. Because like, what is an e-bike even good for if I'm still pedaling really hard? And then I learned it's about pacing. You have to just like, I have to just be chill about this, and then it never gets too bad if I ride back up the hill at a sort of reasonable rate.
When you got excited there for a moment, you were like, you know what? I thought you were going to say
I thought you were
going to say we're going to have class outside tomorrow, which I don't know exactly how that works. We've done that before.
We could do that.
We've tried to hook up our.
I sat in a wading pool one time, I believe.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, we could do that. But it really got me thinking, though, like that special moment. And this is like truly to that message. Like, it's sort of become a cliche, like class outside, right? But like when somebody says class outside, I have a very specific memory of being at Liverpool Elementary School, which still exists in its physical form, but I believe it's not necessarily like part of the school district anymore. I think it's like more of a community center now or something, or maybe a private.
In Liverpool, Ohio?
But it's in Valley City, Ohio.
Oh.
I think it's technically maybe Liverpool Township, but whatever. It's just like, it's Valley City. It's the frog jump capital of the world, obviously. Very near, actually the place I'm going to describe to you is very near Samoski's Pizza. No joke, right there in Valley City.
Sure.
But we had one of those classic kind of long one-floor schools, probably built in the 60s or something like that. Just very, very classic looking from the outside. Yeah. It did have, that's right, that was the new part of the school, and then there was an older part of the school that it was attached to, and the older part was probably built in, I don't even know, like the 20s or something, but there was a tree. I don't know what kind. I want to say it was probably a maple tree, but it was one really big maple tree that cast a shadow across this whole like kind of backyard area of the school. And the only time we were in this grassy area was when it was usually the art teacher, sometimes the English teacher would say class outside, and we would go. I can feel the sensation of leaning up against that knotty bark of the tree with like a tablet. And I don't mean like the tablet that your dad watches.
You were using an abacus, right?
Or I was using an abacus, but like we would have these, these little these like art books, I guess, and then they were on top of something hard that we could draw on. And I was a terrible drawer, but you would just sit out there and you would draw the tree above you, or you would draw what you saw across the street or whatever, and it was just art class outside. And it was honestly some of the most special moments of school when we just were able to like literally move 100 yards from the window that we were looking out of to the other side and to lean up against this tree. It's a very special thing sometimes just to get outside.
We have a lot of teachers in the audience, including my sister Hannah, who's actually a principal now, but so I don't want to like There's probably a good reason for this, but what I remember is often asking if we could have class outside and being turned down. And it's like, why the hell would you turn that down? We weren't asking on a rainy day, obviously. It would probably be around this time of year, right? Late May. It's like, it's nice out. Like if your students were showing the kind of initiative to get, like, because we'd be like, okay, everybody, we're going to ask Mrs. Wharton if we can have class. By the way, Mrs. Wharton was a battle axe. She rode a horse to school in her childhood, Andrew. This is how old I am.
Oh, I thought she rode a horse to school while you were there. That would be a real power move, man.
Kind of pretty insane. I remember her telling us stories. She grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, which she called Omaha, which I thought was weird. And she was, you know how when you're a kid, every adult seems really old. She was actually really old. She retired during my time as a student. I may have hastened that retirement.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's examine this.
I definitely wore Betty Wharton out, but I remember her telling, the two things I remember about her were that she told us that she rode a horse to school when she was a kid, because this would have been the 80s and she was probably like 70, so she would have been going to school in the 1920s, Andrew. Like pre-industrialization. And the other thing was that I was always on, like, whatever they called it. They didn't call it detention, but I was always having to spend my recesses indoors because I was a terrible student. And she would eat an apple. She would be in the classroom, and I'd be copying pages of the dictionary. That was the punishment, like word for word. And she would sit there eating an apple, and then when she would eat the entirety of the apple and have the core, she would eat the core. Which is also, along with riding a horse to school, was a real power move.
It's also sort of a horse move, honestly. She was very inspired. She's inspired by her vehicle.
She was more horse than woman.
Yeah, right? I mean, no
Betty.
offense.
Oh, my God. I never put that together. If only I would have fed her an apple.
But you had to hold your hands
only I would have
straight.
fed
You
her
had
a
to hold
couple
your
of sugar
hands
cubes like the Black Stallion.
Yeah.
Maybe she would have let me out of the Blue Book. But anyway, which was the book that they put, the book where they wrote down all of your assignments that you hadn't turned in. And I've said this on the show, I think recently actually, that like the Blue Book was for every student in the classroom, right? I was at least 70% of the Blue Book. Like the pages in the Blue Book were 70% me.
Yeah.
Because that was particularly during the year that the year she retired after was the year that I just read the Seattle Times in the back of the room the entire school year.
Yeah.
She had an Alex P. Keaton on her hands who was just coming in with a cup of coffee, sitting down and just reading the Wall Street Journal in the back of the room all day long and doing none of the assignments. No wonder that broke something inside of her. I kind of get it.
A real go-go Reaganon over there.
I was too. I mean, that's the sad part. It went all the way down to the level of the politics.
Here I go once again with the email. Every week, I hope that it's from a female. Oh man, it's not from a female.
All right, we didn't get to the kid singing Moana on the plane, but honestly, maybe that's for the best, because if I was going to roast her, I feel like there was no chance you were going to not roast her, Andrew.
I thought it was really sweet. Sort of a moment of togetherness.
Yeah, right.
Sort of a moment of togetherness on a plane.
A thing you would love. A thing, as a young Andrew would have definitely done that on the airplane, would have just commandeered the PA and started singing to everyone who's already mad because they're missing their connection.
A listener sent that story, and I sent it to you, and I was kind of like, I don't even know if we want to touch this. I don't know how I put it, but I was kind of like, this is a great TBTL story, but also I don't want to be super cruel to a little kid, but it was like, yeah, it was definitely a little kid who has, well, let's
not been told no enough. I mean, and that's I put that on the parents,
yes,
for suggesting it to the flight attendant, and I put it mostly on the parents because the flight attendant is in an almost impossible position, right? If you say to the flight attendant, "Hey, my daughter loves to sing Moana," and by the way, I want to. Now we're just doing it.
Are we just? Yeah, I was gonna say, are we burning the topic today? Are we done?
Let's burn the topic today.
Then I feel like we should play a little bit of the audio, and we can skip the email. Then, don't you think that we need to?
No, I want to hear the email.
You do? Okay.
Let's just say, let's not play the music of the kid singing. Let's just say, for the record, no matter how much you love your kid as a parent, just think about how it affects 200 other people.
Yes, exactly.
Generally speaking,
who are already cranky,
who have literally a captive audience,
and are already cranky because they've been delayed on an airplane for like 2 hours. Like,
unless,
a terrible
Andrew,
place to be.
Unless your kid wants to sing "Let Me Poop," their parody cover of "Let It Go" Wait, is it Let It Go from Frozen?
I think it's Let It Go, yeah.
Okay.
No,
that kid is allowed to sing on any flight that I'm on. But anyway, okay, so sorry, back to
She's
the emails.
also
and
now an
emails.
adult, as we learned. She's now
That is true, and a ballet master.
That's right. All right, so this is going back a ways. This is a voicemail from a listener, Sarah, who I believe is calling in from Maine, who wanted to weigh in on hearing parents swear. Very specifically, near the end of a show a couple of weeks ago, you and I were reminiscing about the first time we heard our parents, I think our fathers in our case, say the F word. And Sarah wanted to talk about that.
Hey, friendos. This is Sarah in Maine. Parents and the F word. So that just caused me to flash back to a time when I was 7 years old and on a walk, and I asked him what the F word meant. He told me. He really told me, and I remember just really wishing I had never asked, and also wishing that there was a hole in the earth that might just swallow me up there, so that I could just leave completely. Yeah, and also being confused because the explanation did not really make any sense, because, you know, I had only heard it in the context of a swear, and it's confusing. It's still confusing, to be honest. But anyway, that's my that's that. We're out.
All right, so it sounds like Sarah is still a little confused. Luke, would you like to explain it further for Sarah?
When Donovan Solano comes to the plate with RISP, I sometimes say the F word at the end of the at-bat because I'm also having coitus.
Yes.
So those are two. I'm only allowed to have coitus when Donovan Solano is.
Wow, what strange vows you took. I do want to say, so anyway.
Wrote them myself.
Sorry that phone cracked up a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of what Sarah was saying. Just mortified, and also then being like, why do people scream this word when they're angry? And then you say, what does it mean? And then your dad explains it to you, and you're like, okay, this isn't a conversation I want to have with you right now. And also, it doesn't explain why people say it when they're mad.
It never even occurred to me that could be a moment where the birds and the bees are explained. To somebody. It's funny because it is such a common utterance. It's been totally sort of contextualized for me. Like, until that voicemail, I think I had forgotten for a number of years that it actually relates to a sexual act.
Sure.
I only think of it as the thing you say when you're mad.
Now, I want to get off this topic very urgently.
You don't want to know more about my lovemaking / Donovan Solano feelings?
I do want to come back to Donovan Solano for a second, and then we'll get out of here. I just want to say that this is a relatively new Mariner who's been really, really, really frustrating as a player. Probably won't be around in at least in the Mariners clubhouse much longer. We're expecting, and when you see a player do so poorly when we need him to do so well for so long, you become the face of misery, sort of. And in a certain way, I feel bad for Donovan Solano. And there was a moment, and I don't remember which game.
He's a modern day Abraham Toro.
He is kind of, and that breaks down a little bit, but I won't. Let's not do that. I feel like Toro never even got a chance because he was already the face of misery before he even had his first at bat. Whereas we've seen the struggles with Donovan Solano, but there was this moment where, it's like you see his face, just like, oh, Donovan Solano, like Captain Kirk yelling Han or Khan, right? And anyway, there was this moment after Cal Raleigh hit, I don't know, his 70th home run of the weekend. Yes. And he was back, and they had this, sometimes those shots in the dugout are really sweet, right? And I saw that Cal Raleigh had this moment with somebody who I didn't immediately recognize that was sort of so sweet. He's, slapping everybody's hands, they're slapping his butt, whatever happens after you get a home run. But then one guy, he kind of stopped and they sort of faked each other out for a second and then had a big smile. And I was like, wait, who is that? And I was like, oh, it's Donovan Solano. And it made me so happy to know, I just think of Donovan Solano as this guy who can't hit, right? And is probably not long for this clubhouse. But to know that inside the dugout or inside the clubhouse, he is still treated like a man who can celebrate with Cal Raleigh, and that they have their own little jokes or whatever. It was so humanizing to me, and I was like, he needed that, and I needed that.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's the crazy thing about these players is they are the best baseball player you would ever meet in your life.
Of course.
Even the worst player on a major league team is so phenomenally better at baseball than I'll ever be at anything in my life.
Yeah.
And yet they just seem like an absolute, to quote T-Boz, scrub. And I don't want no. Like Mitch Garver, it just seems like such a complete scrub to me. And yet I will never be as good at anything as Mitch Garver is at baseball. He's just not as good as a lot of the other baseball men that he plays against.
Yeah. Although I did
He is hitting
him,
like 230, I guess, which is not, not the worst.
I did see him hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride, though, which was really like that to me is
dead giveaway.
That's a red flag, my friend.
Dead giveaway. All right, that's gonna do it for today's show. I feel pretty good about this. We discussed my mom wishing my death, and therefore and thereby getting my house. We talked about what else did we talk about?
We talked about the Junior Sluggers quite a bit. We talked about Mariners,
Mariners
culture
stuff. That was
a
for,
little bit.
That was for Casey from the Apple Store.
Yep, we talked about Casey from the Apple Store.
We checked the girl singing Moana off the list, even though we didn't do a lot on that. It was enough that I can now finally take it off the show sheet.
We talked about the big tree I used to sit under. That's what everybody wanted to talk about.
You know what? Honestly, that's a really kind of a beautiful story.
I love
your story.
I think the last time I was in Valley City, just kind of driving around with my dad, reminiscing, I'm pretty sure I saw that tree was still there. So what I've been doing, I've been a little bit distracted. I'm going to see if I can find... Oh, I was going to say if I could screen grab it and use it as a show pic, but I should probably use a show pic of that sweet, sweet Junior Sluggers plaque that you have there behind you.
Oh, yeah. I can take another picture,
We'll make that.
I thought, you know what I thought you were doing? I thought you were setting me up there. I thought you were going to say, you want to go find that tree and then cry next to it like I did once.
Oh, that's right. He did cry next to it. No, I think
the known tree crier has logged on.
No, but I do think that we should bury a TBTL time
placenta?
capsule. I was going to say time capsule below that tree.
Sandwich.
Sandwich. Yeah, I don't know why you said
Finish
placenta.
each other's sandwiches.
But we really should get out of here now.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow with more placentas. In the meantime, please remember, no mountain too tall.
Good luck to me.
Power out.